I assumed we were going to be alone," the Apache girl said, when the soldiers walked in. The door of the old trading post swung open before Naya could finish her sentence. The hinges screamed. Dust blew in from the canyon road. And 3 United States Army soldiers stepped through the frame with rifles across their chests and boots loud on the wooden floor. Naya stood behind the counter with her hands flat on the surface. Her dark eyes moved from the men to the man sitting across from her, the cowboy named Cole Ryder, and then back to the soldiers. She did not move. She did not flinch. But her jaw set tight in that particular way it did when she had made a decision already and was just waiting for the world to catch up. Cole turned on his stool. His coffee cup stayed in his hand. And he looked at the soldiers the way a man looks at weather, noting it, measuring it, deciding what to do next. The lead soldier was a man named Lieutenant Dale Hurst. He was broad in the shoulder and narrow in the thinking, the kind of man who wore his rank the way other men wore cologne. Everywhere, all the time, and too much of it. He scanned the room with flat gray eyes that landed on Cole first, then on Naya. "Trading post is closed," Hurst said. "Government order. You two need to clear out." Cole set his coffee cup down. Slow, deliberate. The sound of the ceramic on the wood counter was the only sound in the room. "I don't see a posted notice," Cole said. Hurst looked at him the way a man looks at a fly on his food. "I am the notice." The 2 soldiers behind Hurst spread slightly, all the way men do when they have been told to look threatening in small spaces. One of them was young, maybe 19, with a face that still had softness in it that the army had not yet scraped away. The other was older, a sergeant named Greer, with a red beard and eyes that watched everything with professional tiredness. Naya had not moved. Her hands were still flat on the counter. The shelves behind her held canned goods, folded cloth, boxes of rifle cartridges, and 2 jars of hard candy that caught the afternoon light from the side window. Everything in that room had been put there by her hands over 3 years of work. Every nail and every plank of those shelves had been driven by her or by her father before he passed. "This is my trading post," she said. Her voice was even, clean, and the kind of voice that did not ask for anything because it did not need to. Hurst looked at her with a new kind of attention, the calculating kind. "And you are?" "Naya Runningwater. My father built this post. I have a deed." "Deeds change," Hurst said. He walked further into the room, hands behind his back now, moving between the shelves the way a man moves through a place he has already decided belongs to him. He picked up a tin of peaches and turned it over in his hand. Cole watched him. Greer, the older sergeant, stayed near the door. The young soldier moved to the left side of the room and tried to look casual and failed at it completely. "The Army is establishing a supply route through this canyon," Hurst said. "This post sits directly on that route. We need it." "You can use the road," Naya said. "Well, the road does not cost you my building." Hurst set the tin of peaches down, not back where he found it, somewhere else. That small act, the deliberate displacement of her property, was meant to say something. Naya heard it clearly. Cole heard it too. "What authority do you have for this order?" Cole said. He had turned fully on his stool now. His long frame was loose, relaxed in the way of a man who was not relaxed at all, but had learned how to wear stillness over tension the way you wear a coat. Hurst turned to look at him again. "Who are you?" "Cole Ryder. I ride mail contract for the territorial government. I stop here twice a week. This woman's post is on my official route." Hurst studied him. "That doesn't give you standing here." "Maybe not," Cole said. "But it gives me reason to send a report to the territorial office in Santa Fe when something unusual happens on my route." Unusual things tend to attract attention. The room held still for a moment. Outside, the wind pushed through the canyon. A horse tied at the rail shifted and stamped. Greer, by the door, moved his eyes from Cole to Hurst and back without moving his head. His face gave nothing away. But his hand, Cole noticed, had drifted slightly away from his rifle. Hurst was the kind of man who did not back down easily. He was also, underneath the uniform, smart enough to recognize a problem before it fully formed. A mail rider with government contract could not simply be brushed aside the way a lone Apache woman at a trading post could be brushed aside, not without the kind of paperwork and inquiry that made careers complicated. "We'll be back," Hurst said, "with formal documentation. Then I will be here to read it," Naya said. Hurst walked to the door. The young soldier followed fast, relieved in the way the young are when danger passes, without them having to do anything about it. Greer was last. He paused at the door and looked back at the room. Not at Naya, not at Cole, but at the room itself, at the shelves, and the hard candy and the deed that was somewhere on the premises. Then he walked out, and the door swung shut behind him. The sound of boots faded across the porch and down into the dirt. Naya did not move for 3 full seconds, and then she exhaled. Not long, not dramatic, just a small and controlled release, like a valve turned slightly open. Cole picked up his coffee cup and found it empty. "I assumed we were going to be alone," Naya said. She looked at the door. Her voice had not changed. The evenness was still there. But her hands had come off the counter, and she had pressed the right one briefly against the edge of the shelf beside her, steadying something, though the shelf itself did not need steadying. Cole turned back toward the counter. "They'll come back with paper, or they'll come back with more men." "Yes." "Which do you think it'll be?" Naya looked at him for a moment. "Hurst is the kind of man who already knows what the paper will say before he writes it." Cole nodded slowly. He turned his empty cup in his hand. Outside, the 3 horses moved off down the canyon road in a slow walk. And then the sound was gone, and the trading post was quiet the way the desert is quiet, not empty, just holding everything very still. "I'll need to send that report," Cole said. "Tonight, if possible. The relay station is 12 miles east. I know where it is." Naya moved behind the counter. She took the pot from the small iron stove and refilled his cup without asking. The coffee was black and strong and smelled of the kind of morning that had not yet been ruined. She set the pot back and looked at the door again. "My father built this post with wood he hauled from 40 miles north," she said. "It took him 2 summers." Cole did not say anything. He understood that some things were not told to him for response. They were told because they needed to exist in the air between 2 people. Weight shared that way, made slightly lighter. He drank his coffee. The canyon outside was quiet. The afternoon light had begun its long fall toward the rim. Somewhere further down the road, 3 soldiers were riding away from a fight they had decided to postpone rather than abandon. And Naya Runningwater stood behind her father's counter in her father's post, with her hands still and her eyes clear. And the deed to that land, somewhere in the back room where no lieutenant's flat gray gaze could reach it. Cole finished his coffee, set the cup down. "I'll be back through in 3 days," he said. "I'll be here," she said. He put on his hat and walked out into the canyon light. In the relay station 12 miles east was a low building of adobe and timber, with a flag that snapped hard in the evening wind. Cole arrived after dark with trail dust on his coat and a specific kind of tiredness behind his eyes. The kind that comes not from riding, but from thinking hard while riding. The station operator was a man named Bert Calhoun, 60 years old, with white whiskers and an ink-stained right hand from years of copying messages. He was eating beans when Cole came through the door, and he set the spoon down with the particular resignation of a man who understood that his meals were always interrupted. Cole pulled out his route log and a folded piece of paper on which he had written, in his precise and economical handwriting, a full account of Lieutenant Dale Hurst's visit to the Running Water Trading Post on the afternoon of September the 14th. Government priority, Cole said, setting the papers on the table. Territorial Office, Santa Fe. Marshal's office copy. Bert looked at the paper. He looked at Cole. He picked up the paper and his pen. "This going to start trouble?" Bert asked. "Trouble has already started," Cole said. "I'm just making sure the right people know about it before it gets worse." Bert wrote. Cole poured himself water from the jugs on the shelf and stood by the window and looked out at the dark canyon and thought about a woman standing very still behind a counter with her hands flat on the wood and her eyes on a door that had just been made into something it had not been before. A threshold that the wrong kind of men now knew existed. He had been riding mail routes in the New Mexico territory for 6 years. He had seen towns swallowed. He had seen range wars start over less than one trading post. He had seen good people outweighted and outpapered and out-titled into nothing while the law stood by and shuffled its boots. Naya Running Water was not going to become one of those stories if he had anything to say about it. The message went out that night on the next rider east. Cole slept 3 hours on Bert's spare cot and was back in the saddle before sunrise, riding west, back toward the canyon and the post and whatever the next 3 days would bring. He did not know yet that Hurst would move faster than expected. He did not know that the young soldier with the soft face had been left behind in the canyon, watching. He did not know that Naya had found that out herself well before dawn and had already made 2 decisions because of it. One that would save things, and one that would cost her something she had been carrying quietly for a long time. The desert ran flat and orange in the first light. His horse knew the road. Cole rode with his hat pulled and his mind moving ahead of him like a scout, ranging out over the terrain of the next few days and reading it the way a man reads country, for where the water was, and for where the danger would come from, and for whether or not there was ground worth holding. There was. He rode faster. The young soldier's name was Private Owen Mack. He was 19 and from a town in Missouri that he thought about approximately every 20 minutes and spoke about to no one because the other men would have laughed. He had been left in the canyon by Hurst with instructions to watch the trading post and note who came and went and to report back by nightfall. Owen Mack had been sitting behind a boulder on the east ridge since 3 in the afternoon, and in that time he had watched a hawk make 17 circles over the canyon floor, counted the boards on the trading post's south wall, and tried very hard not to think about the woman inside who had spoken to the lieutenant without a single tremor in her voice. He had been in the Army 4 months. In that time, he had understood, slowly and then all at once, that a great number of the things he had been told about the work were not exactly true in practice. He had been told, for example, that the Apache people were uniformly hostile and required firm management. He had observed, in practice, a woman who ran a legal trading post and spoke to a government officer with the measured patience of someone who had learned that patience was the only tool that worked reliably over time. The difference between those 2 things sat in his chest like an undigested meal. And when Naya came out of the post at dusk and walked directly to the base of the ridge and called up to him by name, "Private Mack, I can see you from the window. You might as well come down and eat something." He nearly fell off the boulder. He came down. She fed him cornbread and dried meat and did not ask him anything about his orders. which somehow made him tell her everything about his orders almost immediately. He was 19. She waited him out with the calm efficiency of someone who had learned that silence was a better interrogation tool than any question. When he was done, she said, "Hurst is coming back tomorrow with men and a paper." "Yes," Owen said. He stared at his cornbread. "How many men?" He looked up at her. He was in the middle of a moment that he would measure the rest of his life by, and in some part of him understood that, even then. 6. He's got a document from the post commander authorizing acquisition of civilian property for military use. Naya looked at the fire for a moment. "Is it real?" Owen's jaw worked. "It has the right signatures." "Is it real?" she asked again. Same voice, same evenness. Owen put down the cornbread. The post commander signed it. Whether the post commander had authority to sign it without territorial approval, he stopped. He was 19 and from Missouri, and had never in his life been looked at the way this woman was looking at him. Not with threat, not with pleading, with a simple and complete expectation that he would tell the truth. "No," he said. "I don't think it's real enough." Naya nodded once. She stood and began to clear the small table. "Miss Hurst doesn't know you're telling me this," she said. "No." "What will you do after tonight?" Owen was quiet for a long time. The fire cracked. The canyon was very dark and very large around the small circle of firelight and the small table and the two people sitting at it. "I don't know yet," he said. He said it honestly, which was, he was finding out. The only way anything was worth saying at all. Naya set a spare blanket on the porch railing. "You can sleep out here. It is cold in the canyon at night." She went inside. Owen Mack sat by the dying fire and thought about Missouri and about what it meant to follow an order you knew was built on a foundation that was not solid, and about what it cost a person to name that out loud. He sat there a long time. Inside the trading post, Naya was writing a letter by lamplight. Not to the territorial office, not to a marshal, but to a man she had not spoken to in 2 years. A man who owed her something. A man who knew every land deed and property record in the territory, because he had spent the better part of a decade acquiring them. His name was Silas Croft. He was not a good man. He was, however, a man who hated Lieutenant Dale Hurst for reasons that had nothing to do with justice, and everything to do with a business dispute that had left Silas Croft with a grudge he had been nurturing like a garden. Naya sealed the letter. She was not proud of the decision. She made it anyway. Then she blew out the lamp and lay down on her cot in the back room, fully dressed, with her father's old rifle on the floor beside her. She did not sleep much, but she had stopped expecting sleep to be easy a long time ago. In a season that was not this one, and under circumstances, she kept compressed to a single fact that she never spoke aloud, and only allowed herself to think in the abstract, from a safe distance, as though it had happened to someone else who had eventually become her. Tomorrow was coming. She was ready. Hurst arrived at mid-morning with 6 soldiers and a piece of paper. He came in a column, riding 2 abreast on the canyon road. And he had dressed for it. Brass polished, posture straight, the whole performance of authority arranged carefully on his body. The document in his coat pocket had 3 signatures and a government seal, and he had read it enough times to have it memorized, when what he had not prepared for was Cole Ryder standing on the porch of the trading post with a territorial deputy marshal's badge pinned to his shirt and a folded document of his own in his left hand. Hurst pulled up his horse 20 yards from the porch. His column halted behind him with the clatter of tack and the shifting of horses that had been ridden harder than they liked. "Ryder," Hurst said. His voice was controlled. "That badge is new. Deputized this morning, Cole said. Territorial Marshal's Office. Emergency appointment pending full investigation of unauthorized property seizure. Hurst's jaw moved. You rode 12 miles and back since last night? I ride mail for a living, Cole said. I'm fast. Greer, behind Hurst's left shoulder, pressed his lips together, and it was the closest thing to a smile a man like Greer permitted himself. Hurst rode forward another 10 yards and stopped. I have a signed acquisition order from the post commander. I have a territorial injunction against that acquisition pending review, Cole said. He unfolded the paper in his left hand and held it up so the morning light caught the seal. He had ridden 50 miles in the night hours, round trip, on a horse that was still blowing and tied at the rail to his left, with both flanks dark with sweat. The horse had done it because Cole had asked it to. That was the nature of the relationship. The two documents faced each other across 20 yards of canyon dirt. Naya stood inside the door. She was watching through the gap, her hand resting on the frame, her face in the shadow. Owen Mack was standing at the far right of Hurst's column. He had ridden back to Hurst that morning and given his report, that he had seen nothing unusual during the night watch. It was not a lie exactly. He had simply not seen anything that he had chosen to make official. Hurst stared at Cole for a long time. He was calculating. It was visible on his face, the way calculation is always visible when a man is used to getting his way and has just encountered an obstacle he did not expect. This is not finished, Hurst said. No, Cole agreed. It's not. But it's paused while the Territorial Office reviews the post commander's authority to sign acquisition orders without civilian oversight. Silas Croft's letter had arrived at the Territorial Land Office before Cole's report, as it turned out, or because Silas Croft had his own riders and his own reasons for speed. He had filed a competing claim, a prior interest document, and a formal challenge to the post commander's acquisition authority all in one package, hand-delivered by a man who had ridden through the night in the other direction. Silas Croft did not move slowly when he moved against people he wanted to move against. Naya had known he would not. She had not told Cole about the letter. She would have to tell him eventually. She knew that. But not this morning. This morning had its own requirements. Hurst turned his horse. He said something to his column in a low voice, and the column turned with him, and they rode back down the canyon road the way they had come, still two abreast, still with the straight backs, but with something different in the atmosphere of it, the particular atmosphere of men riding away from something they had expected to be easy. Cole watched them go. Then he pinned the badge off his shirt and held it in his hand for a moment, looking at it. Marshall owed me a favor, he said, not to anyone in particular. Naya came out onto the porch. She stood beside him and watched the column disappear around the canyon bend. They'll be back, she said. Yes. With something more bulletproof. Probably. She looked at the badge in his hand. That worked this morning. This morning, he said. He put the badge in his coat pocket. How many mornings like this can we manufacture before they come with something I can't paper over? Naya was quiet. And the canyon was bright now and warm, and the hawk that Owen Mack had watched the evening before was back, making its circles above the thermals. I sent a letter, she said, before you got back. Cole looked at her. To Silas Croft. The name landed in the space between them, and neither of them moved to dismiss it. Cole knew who Silas Croft was. Everyone in the territory knew. Landman, opportunist, precise and ruthless in his methods, and motivated at all times by a ledger that had nothing to do with justice. He'll tie this up in competing claims, Cole said. Yes. And then he'll come for the post himself, legally. with a better argument than Hearst has. Yes, Naya said, but it will take him longer. And in that time, the territorial review will be complete. And if the review finds Hearst's commander overstepped, which it will, and because the law on civilian property acquisition is clear, then the acquisition order is void. Cole processed this. It was a longer game than he had been playing. He had been playing morning by morning. She had been playing months ahead. And Croft's competing claim? He said. I have the deed, she said. Croft can file whatever he wants. A valid deed holds. It holds if you can afford to contest it in court. Naya looked at him. That is the part I have not yet solved, she said. The evenness in her voice was still there, but something underneath it was visible for just one moment. Not fear, not defeat. Something older and more specific. The particular weight of a person who has spent years being the one who solves the problems and has, this once, run into the edge of what they can solve alone. Then it was gone, and the evenness came back over it, smooth and complete. One problem at a time, she said. Cole looked out at the empty canyon road. I'll be back in 3 days, he said. My route. I know. If anything changes before that, I'll manage. He looked at her. She was looking at the road where the soldiers had gone, and her face was clear and calm and entirely opaque in that particular way of a person who has decided a long time ago not to let the landscape of what they are feeling show on the surface where other people can see it and use it. He put on his hat. He went to his horse. The animal was tired but steady. He checked the girth, checked the water bags, mounted. 3 days, he said. 3 days, she said, without turning from the road. He rode east. Behind him, the trading post stood in the canyon light. Solid, mauve plank by plank, nail by nail, 2 summers of a father's work. And the woman who had inherited it stood on its porch and did not watch him go because she was already thinking about what came next. Owen Mack had stayed behind. He was standing at the far edge of the lot with his horse, not quite at the post, not quite on the road, in the uncertain geography of a person who has stopped belonging to one thing, but has not yet arrived at another. Naya looked at him for a moment when Cole was gone. Can you swing a hammer? She said. Owen looked at the post's south wall, where 2 boards had worked loose from last winter's freeze. Yes, he said. Good, she said. There's one in the shed. She went inside. Owen Mack tied his horse to the rail, went to the shed, found the hammer, and went to work on the south wall. He did not know what he was doing beyond that afternoon. He would figure it out 1 board at a time. Inside, Naya made coffee and got out the deed and set it flat on the counter under the afternoon light. Reading it as she had read it many times, finding in its precise and legal language the same thing she always found. Her father's name, her name, and the date, and the particular authority of a document that said, "This place is real, this place is ours, and we were here." Hearst would come back, Croft would file. The territory would take its time. But the post was standing, the deed was clear, the coffee was hot, and 3 days from now, a mail rider would come back down this road. One problem at a time. Outside, the hammer struck wood. Steady, even. The sound of something being fixed rather than taken apart. Naya drank her coffee. The canyon held the afternoon light the way it always did. Long and golden and entirely indifferent to the plans of soldiers and landmen and everyone else who thought the desert would eventually agree with them. It would not. It never had. And the woman in the trading post, with the deed under her hands and the coffee going cold in the cup she had forgotten to keep drinking, had understood that longer than any of them.